But I just wanted to rope in our senior reporter, Canny Maphanga, who's been monitoring proceedings from the auditorium for us since the early hours of this morning, just for her to give us a comprehensive wrap of some of that testimony. Canny, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us. Quite a lot. They've adjourned for lunch now. We've heard just before that adjournment the introduction yet again now of Shadrack Sibiya, the general now showing interest to take on a bigger role or more responsibility. Just give us a comprehensive wrap of what has been stated thus far.
Indeed, Fundo, good afternoon to you and to the viewers. We expect that the General Masemola will be expanding on several contentions surrounding Lieutenant General Shadrack Sibiya following his appointment in 2023. But to wrap up the morning, he deals with quite detail into the dynamics surrounding the political killings task team and its disbandment with respect to the conduct of Police Minister Senzo Mchunu. He describes him as a figure who had an eagerness to disband the PKTT and to do so immediately. He also called the minister's conduct, that is Minister Mchunu, concerning because when he asked for the reason to disband, it wasn't forthcoming, but later on during the meeting where we saw him delve into those details and the dynamics surrounding the different views that were held amongst the ranks of the police, that Senzo Mchunu had stated to him allegedly that the issue of political killings is pre-1994 and it is not a concern of the constitutional democracy. Of course, this is not a view that he agreed with, but if we look at the history in our country detailing this issue or prevailing issue of political killings in KwaZulu-Natal, there was just recently the Madlanga Commission, which only made its findings 2018 with respect to the underlying root causes of political killings in KwaZulu-Natal, and that was a 2018 finding that was made. But in 2025, you had the minister allegedly telling the General Masemola that this issue was no longer an issue in the KZN province, and of course he was reducing these very specific murders to just murders and not political killings. But we know that the way in which this team was formulated is that they looked at these murders in isolation as murders that are directly linked to the politics of this country, the political landscape, infighting within political parties, and of course party-to-party disputes. And General Masemola also goes into his experience as in the SAP, stating that from 2000 to 2010, that he himself worked in the KwaZulu-Natal province, detailing this issue of political killings or political violence rather in that particular province. So it's quite clear that the issue prevailed post our constitutional democracy from 1994 onwards, and one would argue that it even got worse. Even adding to that, Fundo, we remember the evidence of Mkhwanazi that he referred to a letter by Advocate Elaine Harrison, the KZN DPP, who raised the alarm on the looming 2026 local government elections, stating that that is often accompanied by political violence. Remember, she's the DPP for the KZN province, stating that she needed clarity on this question of disbandment in light of the fact that the polls were coming and they knew that this prevailing issue could rear its head again due to that climate that would be set by political violence in the province and the looming local government elections. So those are the kinds of sentiments that Masemola shared in his stance, or rather disagreeing with the contention made by Police Minister Senzo Mchunu allegedly that this issue was no longer an issue and that was the reason behind the decision to disband. He also goes into detail to state that that decision was not accompanied by relevant documentation, research, any sound advice that would make such a decision rational before the eyes of the law. Of course, he also goes on to state that when they discussed this PKTT and its advances, because remember, it didn't only work in the area of political violence, it went into forte murders and of course the issue of traditional healers, that when they made advances on a case involving the death of a particular councillor and they made an arrest there, he stated that the minister was allegedly visibly angry that they were continuing to do work and they were continuing to succeed. He described it as strange, he's saying that it was the first time he had seen a minister of police be upset about the good work being done by its crime-fighting units. He also clarifies and confirms that despite the 31st of December 2024 directive by the minister that the PKTT is essentially still operating because the disbandment plan was not approved and it still hasn't been approved, that it's still been operating. And he says that in the process of doing this disbandment plan, that it became clear to him what the true objective behind the disbandment of the PKTT was, and he centers that around that high-profile arrest of Vusimuzi Cat Matlala, who has been identified as an alleged cartel member operating within the Gauteng province. And of course, he's also been linked to Brown Mokgotsi, who has been linked to the police minister, Senzo Mchunu. And of course, Cat Matlala has also been linked to Lieutenant General Shadrack Sibia. Right now, before the lunch adjournment, he was detailing several concerns surrounding Sibia and the kind of interest he had in particular areas of policing. We expect after the lunch adjournment, he'll elaborate further on some of those concerns he had about Shadrack Sibia. Over to you in studio.
And Canny, just before I let you go, any likelihood that perhaps General Fannie Masemola might wrap up today his testimony, or perhaps on Thursday?
It is expected that General Masemola would wrap up his testimony by the end of today, and then of course the commission will not sit tomorrow because it's a public holiday. Then we'll return on Thursday, and if he has wrapped it up, you can expect a new witness to be on the stand come Thursday.
All right, Canny, thank you very much for that reportage as always. That's senior reporter Canny Maphanga there, pardon me, at the Bridget Mabandla Justice College in Pretoria.